Is there anybody else that's joined virtually or anything yet?
No, no one else.
Okay, all right, because the only other committee member that I have not heard from is Pam. So,
I wonder if she knows to
I mean-
contact Josh if she's having difficulty
oh,
connecting.
connecting on.
So in the future, if you're calling in remotely and for some reason the link's not working, just email or
You
text
email
Josh.
him, he's really quick
Yeah,
about,
and he'll-
helping,
Okay,
yeah,
he'll fix it.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Josh.
Josh.
all right.
Josh
So-
is the man.
All right, we will go ahead and get started. Let's call this meeting to order at 1:02 PM. We are in person and obviously remote. So first I'd like to welcome everybody. This is my first meeting as your chairperson. So one of the things that I like to do is because we're recorded and because we could potentially have somebody new watching for the first time who doesn't know us as a committee, I'd like us to take a moment just to introduce ourselves. So I'm Laura Pangratz. I am the chairperson. I've been on the committee for a year and a half, I guess, something. I am started out as a part-time resident. I am now full-time here in Ocean Pines, full-time. And I have not legal background in bylaws, but I do have bylaws experience with my volunteer work that I still do as a PTA mentor and all of that. So, can I have you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Bob Hilligus. I've been on the committee for 6 years. I'm now on an extended term until the committee is filled. And hopefully we can find somebody with a background in law to fill in for us, because I'm willing to step down whenever we find the right person.
Right, right. Well, we are definitely grateful to have you still on board with us. So, Keith?
Keith Kaiser, permanent resident, been on the committee for about 3 years and just got approved for 2 more.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Augie Flingy. I am brand new to the committee. This is my first meeting. We are part-time residents and also have a home in Virginia.
Okay, well, welcome. Thank you very much. I feel like because we have this virtual option and people can rewatch, it's nice to introduce ourselves. So, and since many of us hadn't met each other, before, I think that's good. Now, the next thing we do is to make sure we have quorum. So we do have quorum with 4 present, correct? Right, Bob?
Correct.
Okay. Bob's going to be my right-hand person, literally, to make sure that I follow everything. We don't have any guests here today. The next thing is to approve the agenda. And if you don't have a copy of it, I do have some copies here. The first page is the agenda. Second page is my report, which we'll go over in a minute.
Yes.
So please take a look at the agenda and let me know if there's anything you would like to.
And there's minor typo on the, what the heck is the minutes? No, the agenda, excuse me,
on
the agenda.
Just the agenda
I'm
part.
jumping ahead.
Yeah, take the whole back.
No, I make a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And for clarity's sake, because I feel like this is our initial meeting together as a group, and for anyone who will watch our exciting committee meetings in the future, we do follow Robert's rules when it comes to voting on things. Okay, so next thing on the agenda, and it's in your packet somewhere, is to approve the minutes from our last meeting. So it should at the top say September 16th. Is that those sections that, this one? The minutes there.
Yeah, there was. Right there, you want to get that turned out.
Oh, okay.
It's perfect. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's not a period type.
Is there anything, missing from it? Did I put one in there for you, Keith?
No.
Do you have it?
I've got the,
Or- Because there's
I got the
another
email.
packet over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Read through
what
it.
is?
It should be a 2-pager that says September 16th at the top. If you're looking for it. Now, are you all comfortable with, within Robert's rules, that if there are no objections or corrections at any point when we do stuff like this, if I say, hearing no objections, these minutes will be approved and things like that? Or do you like the more formal, make a motion second and all of that?
I'm fine with informality.
Stay as informal as possible.
Gotcha. All right.
We,
Okay.
we will stop you if you start to do something we don't want to.
Got you. I get too formal.
Other ones.
Oh, okay. Well, because I don't,
Carry on.
because I know it's acceptable to do it that way. We just have not really, done it that way. So, all right. So, hearing no,
And-
major corrections, we will approve the minutes as presented from the September 16th meeting.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, so do we have, next up on our agenda is public comments. Do we have anyone, Josh, virtually who has a public comment?
No, Director Lakernick is on, I believe.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have, anything you want to say, Mr. Lakernick? You don't have to. All right, so hearing no other indications for public comments, we will move on. I have decided that part of what I would like to incorporate moving forward is a quick little chairperson's report. It will help me make sure I document everything that I do. So the second page under the agenda was my report. I'll tell you what tasks are completed and what tasks I still feel I have to complete. So just so you know, then I have attended both of the directors' meetings that we've had since I attended the one on September 24th. Met with our past chairman, Jim Trummel. He gave me his life's work with the committee. So I have his binder, I've got his flash drive and everything like that. At that point, we had signed and submitted the application for Augie to join our board, our committee, and gave that to our board liaison, which I am remiss in acknowledging. I should have done this first, is our board liaison, Steve Jacobs, is excused from our meeting today because he had a prior commitment. But more often than not, he will also be attending our meetings as well. Then I have communicated with our former chairman, Jim, because he was gracious enough to do the put together the minutes from his last meeting, which was the September meeting for us, and also give us some drafts to start working on for the annual report. So as I've had questions, he has been so gracious to answer my emails. And he was invited to be able to join us today, but he has other plans this afternoon. So, but he is always welcome to join any of our future meetings, whether he wants to do it virtually or come visit with us in person. And then I did just attend the October 15th meeting of the Board of Directors. So my tasks that are still left over from our last meeting in September are to send the charging documents to the appropriate, to our board liaison, for either the first or second reading, which we will go over as we go through our agenda. And to communicate, at this time, now it's a new elections committee chairperson, about the fact that they will have the ability to prepare and propose to the board a first reading for the amendment to M06. Okay, so I'm going to try to make that kind of, whenever we have a meeting, put what I have done, whatever meetings I have attended, so that we can document that. At that time, I do not, it's not required if any of you want to do a report, but if you do have something to share, we will share it at that point. So is there anybody who would like to does anybody have any updates or anything that you feel pertain to this committee?
I have nothing.
So then typically what I would like to do is offer our board liaison an opportunity to give us a report, based on, kind of almost like a follow-up, to anything that we've asked, our board liaison from a previous meeting. I think that would be an opportune time to say, did this charging document get moved forward? What status are we at there? So that's what I kind of envision what the board liaison report would include. Now, obviously, this one will be, this is a one-time line item for our agenda, but I am a person who cannot talk and take notes at the same time. So I would like to put forth, is there anyone here from our committee who would be willing to be our secretary? Our past chairman, Jim, was both the chairman and the secretary, which was, but he's very knowledgeable and very able to write down all of the backgrounds for a lot of things. But I joke all the time in my PTA world, that's the one position I've never done as secretary, because I can't talk and take notes at the same time. So is there anyone who would be willing and able to take on that task for me?
I'm not either, and
Okay,
the thing that makes it unique now that the meetings are recorded,
right, true.
you got the audit trail
But we
right
need to
there.
have, we have, and I can go back and take the notes and formally put something together so that we have paper minutes, unless there is, maybe we can table this to the next meeting too. I can put together, today's minutes moving forward, unless somebody is willing to.
I mean, I can take notes and I think I'd be willing to do it. I'm a little nervous about doing it without seeing how this works a few times.
Right. So how about if we do like a joint one then, maybe
Sure.
if you can help take the notes so that as, we go back and put something together between the recording to refer to and the notes, we'll make sure we didn't miss something.
Well, and the guidance document.
Right.
So at the end of the meeting,
Yes.
when we go through this and update it, that is a summarized version of
What,
necessary action
yeah,
taken. So
yeah.
Right.
okay. All right. Perfect. Okay.
The other thing that he mentioned, being nervous, you have the audio, so it's all being recorded with the video and audio. So if you miss something, you go back. And what I've done a lot of times in updating this is go back to listen to what somebody said, so I make sure I got it right,
Right.
Sure.
and then forward it to Jim, who was our past chairman, to make sure he agreed.
Right. Right.
This document creates the audit trail of everything that's open as far as the bylaws are concerned and the addendums to it.
Okay.
And I've taken the document maintenance over because
Okay.
Bob is slowly phasing out. So
Yeah. It's a call to the committee.
Right. Right. So we're all
Theoretically, we
learning
got 5
how to do
members right
this
now.
together.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, with some guidance, I can take notes and
Okay.
write them up. I'd be happy.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. We can, I don't know how moving forward, how it's been done in the past, Bob. Is it something formal where we appoint a secretary, or is it just something that we all agreed upon as a group to say, okay, if Augie says he's willing to take notes and do that at every meeting when he's available, you know,
In
how do you
the
want to do this?
in the 6 years I've been on the committee, we've never really had a secretary. Marty Clark was the chair when I first came on, and he was replaced by Jim. And they took their own notes. Now, in the past, we didn't have the video,
Right,
only starting with COVID,
yeah,
when we called meetings back. And
okay,
to me, with this committee and with the support of Josh, we have the ability of displaying everything. So if you don't have hard copies at the meeting, as long as it's on the agenda,
right,
Josh has been displaying them, doing a superb job, and the documentation is well recorded. And I think for this committee, if not for other committees, because this affects the bylaws so much and the addendums to the bylaws, that it's important that we maintain an accurate audit trail.
right. So,
So anything I can do to help you.
which will be very much appreciated. You have an open door invite too, just like Jim. We have plenty of extra seats here at the table and to the side if you want, you know. I will not turn away, you know, anyone who's willing to consult with us, who has the experience for this committee. So let's be informal for right now and just say at the moment, Augie is willing to take notes. If something changes, we can, or somebody says to us, we want you to make it more formal, we'll come back and we'll deal with that then. But so for right now, thank you for helping to take the notes.
It would be helpful to see what the notes looked like last time. I don't know. if I had
Basically,
access to them.
the minutes that we just did, that's how,
It turns out that.
yeah,
Okay.
that's how that they're done.
Yeah.
I would just typically follow the agenda and put the notes into the each category kind of thing, so that we know what we're talking about.
Okay.
And all the previous minutes for the meeting are on the internet under our.
Then I
rules.
know it, that's the sample I need.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So you can
I
find.
didn't know if there was
there.
another step.
Right.
Okay, so now, the fun part starts, and this is where I got a little nervous because I'm not sure where we should be going. So I really just kind of took our agenda from last month, the September one, and just kind of kept everything a little bit the same. As far as unfinished business, the M08, is that the one? And I believe Jim had the conversation and interaction with the president of the directors, Doug, right? Mr. Parks,
Yes.
isn't he the one that wanted to have some
Yeah, he had a
conversation
concern
about
on
this?
two of the budget items, with, if we eliminated those manuals, whether the control would still be in place. And from the best of our knowledge, it's there because their general manager is maintaining those with the approval of the
Right.
board. So
So I wasn't sure, do we keep this on our agenda as
Well,
something to discuss further in the
need-
future? Or, because I've had no communication with him as far as this particular
Is-
topic. He communicated with our past chairman, Jim, about all that.
right, and
He was going to attend last time, remember?
Mhm.
And talk to us about it, and he wasn't able to do that. So maybe that's what we need to do.
It's just invite him to the
Is,
next one.
is to
yeah,
invite
through the
him.
board liaison, I would have
Have
our
Ask-
board liaison
ask.
ask him or bring it back up at a board meeting. Because it was basically never agreed to by the board
right,
that we could eliminate that section. And for all the reasons published, it should be eliminated.
so
There was one particular, I don't remember exactly the detail, but there was at least one of the documents that falls within that category that Doug was concerned about
Yeah, I think there was,
that losing track of.
right,
Right.
And he didn't have any issues with the rest of the stuff
no,
as presented, but there was one or two that.
two. The financial management, procedures manual, and the financial management
Policy.
policy manual.
Yeah,
Those are the two that he was concerned about.
Okay.
And so the board needs to feel comfortable that that control remains in effect if they eliminate this resolution.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the
right.
best would be to do that through our board liaison.
Yeah.
And invite him, Doug, to come to the meeting, or they may decide that they now have enough information that they do have control. So therefore
And
they
then
can
it's not something that
authorize
we
the
have to-
elimination.
Okay.
But we
All right.
can't eliminate that resolution without approval
Until-
of the
okay.
board.
All right.
and you know, and maybe if Steve talks to Doug and Steve understands what his concerns are, then Steve
Right.
can brief us and Doug doesn't need to
Right.
come here. But
Right.
yeah.
Right.
That was my thought. If
Yeah.
Steve has that
All
conversation.
right. So I will send an email then to our liaison, since he's not here today, about this particular uh, item, and ask him to reach out to Mr. Parks, the president, and see where he stands with all of this, and whether or not he would like to come to our one of our meetings, or if he wants to share his thoughts with our liaison, and then our liaison can share those thoughts with us to know how to move forward or not on that particular
I
item.
honestly believe that they have enough information now that they can have a conversation. If they agree with it, they can agree to discontinue that resolution, the MO9.
Okay.
And
Okay.
We never actually had a charging document for that, right?
I don't think so.
no, that one doesn't have a charging document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a lot of documentation that was followed up, that Jim put together, the reasons for eliminating it and why it's impossible to really control it.
Right.
So if you have a resolution that you can't control, why do you want to continue with it?
Right.
Are you okay with that then? Emma,
Thanks. So the two that I wasn't sure about and I left on here under unfinished business was the CO9 charging document that goes to the executive council, which should be in your packet that I gave you. And I believe according to this, Jim had put this charging document together. That our committee is requesting the board to review this resolution C09 to determine its current effectiveness within the stated purpose of the resolution and policies of the association. The background and reason for this charging document is that this is now overdue for review.
I didn't.
And
This is
obviously,
better
it is
for approval
open-ended
of
as to when council meetings are held.
Yeah, see, with the charging document, the board can accept it and
Right.
approve it. They don't have to have a first reading on it. On the charging document, on any other change, there has to be a first reading
Okay.
and then it goes on.
See,
So
those are
this
the-
one-
These are the little minor
Now, the
things. that
question is
I'm learning.
whether our board liaison has actually forwarded this to the
To-
board.
Yeah.
So since he isn't here, you
All right.
basically it's on hold. So
You,
but you might want to follow up with him to
Yeah.
remind him.
liaison to find out the status of it. If
Right.
it got forwarded or
Yeah,
not.
if it got
correct?
forwarded or not, if it didn't get forwarded, if you can get it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Where did I say that? CO, right? The next one is C01, also in your packet. This one is a review of resolution C01 committee, for the committee general to determine its current effectiveness within the stated purpose of the resolution and policies of the association. The background for this as to why our committee is asking or needs an action on this is that it is also, this resolution is due for regular review in September. So And then the discussion under it, to help give some background is, it is recommended that consideration be given to the following resolution provisions. 4E provides for review of an application by the committee chair. The application form provides for review of an application by the committee liaison in addition to the chair. 4F is consider whether the specified distribution of the agenda serves the association purposes. And 4G refers to whether to consider whether the distribution of approved minutes serves the association purposes. So we're asking the directors to consider whether the applications can be submitted and processed through review steps by electronic means, because, you know, we may need to update that so that it specifies that we can accept that, because we've already had some applications that we've needed to do that for. You know, if you have a part-time person, that part-time person cannot come in and physically turn in an application to be on a committee easily, etc. So consider adding a format for committee agendas as an attachment, and the format for committee minutes as is specified in an attachment. I think the idea there, if I recall right, is to make sure that everybody's following pretty much the same format for all of the meetings and stuff, you know, so that it's consistent. And same thing for the minutes. So I guess this is another one I need to follow up with our liaison then.
Yes, yeah, that's what I would do, is find out where it's at
Okay.
in the review process. Because the idea with the charging document is if they won't accept it, then it becomes, if they can send it back to us with questions, and then it's
Right.
up to us to clarify.
All right.
And again, Jim has all the backup document if you don't have it, or correspondence to place on it.
Yeah, the correspondence part, he gave me lots of stuff on his flash drive. So I have downloaded that. And I also have his big book of historical stuff in there. So
Right.
have not started completely reading and memorizing everything in there.
Right.
So now I believe the reports then, is this off of, does this refer to the search assessments and elections? Is that refer to this document, our governance document here, as to what reports are due? Or because I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure when I read that why it was on there, because I don't know if it's a standalone or not. There's.
Right. Okay. I might have to
I'm
come back to
not
that one, because I'm not
sure I understand that one.
Okay, so we'll figure, I have a feeling we'll figure that one out as we go along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it may move off of unfinished business, or, you
Yeah.
know.
I think we can move off, and then that may show up when we're talking
right,
about some of
right.
the new business.
All right, so I do think our next big task.
Or- I'm sorry, is
Or
that,
did you find?
well, here under unfinished business reports A and B.
Mhm.
Is that from the last minutes?
From our minutes that we just approved, yeah.
Last month?
Yeah, September 16th.
Right. That might be it there then.
Yeah,
What does that have?
under unfinished business. Yeah, and reports. Got a couple of subparagraphs there talking about a few things.
Okay, so let me pull that.
Yeah, okay, that's the report.
Oh, I remember Jim talking about these.
Yeah, the question was whether or not the reports be reviewed by the board, because it's not necessarily shared that the report has been received and reviewed.
Okay, so
And again, I think that is an issue that really needs to be reviewed with our board
well,
liaison.
and I will say, just earlier this morning, I did receive, as chairperson, an email from Mr. Parks, which he sent to all the chairpersons of every committee, reminding everybody that there's an annual report due by October 31st. And that if we have not already done it, to, get it in
Right.
before the deadline. So this would relate to that in the sense that if he's asking for these reports at some point at a director's meeting, are we looking to hear that they received reports from all of these committees, or, to acknowledge that, yes, the directors received all of our reports?
If you look at the minutes of the meeting and go down to reports B, the
Mhm.
last minutes, what he was talking about there is the election committee report in particular,
Right.
and some of the others that the reports.
This was also done before the past elections committee all resigned. That, when we had our meeting in September, I believe this was prior to that committee stepping away. And now we have a brand new committee, so they don't have the history.
Well, I think there's two issues there. Number one, the last election committee, before they resigned,
Mhm.
submitted their report. But we have never received any acknowledgement that the report has been received. And the question here was to follow up. Has the board received it and agreed to it, or did they have questions? And if you read B, I think that was pretty clear what Jim was trying to get across.
Yeah, I mean, the point is, our bylaws require these reports.
Right.
So it's business, it's official business. And the board either doesn't receive some of those reports, or they receive them, but they don't acknowledge them. Or maybe they acknowledge them, but they don't talk about their content, whether it requires comment, doesn't require comment, accept it as is, etc.
Right.
So it's a required business function that's not being included in board meetings. Which is what I believe. So in general, that's the concern.
Right.
And then B, there's a specific example,
Yeah.
but Jim's concern is that, through our,
Even us, we don't know, in order to know if this is being followed, because they're not announced at a director's meeting that they've received annual reports from all of these committees, minus whatever committees have not turned them in on time, we wouldn't know if it's being done. Right?
well, yeah, if let's say one of the committees submitted a report to the board and part of their report was that they felt some documentation needed to be changed or updated. That'd be helpful for us to know,
Right.
because at some point we're going to be involved in that. So it's a procedural thing that is just not being included in the board's agenda. It kind of goes back to what we talked about that one time about wondering if there was a tickler for the board that lists all the upcoming reports, things that are coming up that they should be looking for.
Right.
Right.
Well, and it also goes along with our discussion. I forget exactly which one we were talking about, but like if there were complaints sent in and all of that, or violations and all of that, and if it just said none, that didn't tell us, did they receive none? Were there none that needed to be carried over and discussed? It wasn't clear in the, it wasn't clearly communicated that they received anything, just putting none after a topic on an agenda doesn't tell us if they actually got anything or not.
And I think if you go back and we look at it, the last year was turmoil, changed the bylaws.
Yeah.
And some things got in, some didn't. The board was an overload for that period.
Right.
And if you back up then the year before that, where we didn't have a board liaison, there were a lot of problems. So now we're at the point that we got a good board liaison.
Right.
The bylaws are behind us. So now we need to work with the board liaison to make sure that we are following and the board follows the
And get back
resolution
to a
agreed.
better.
And when you got, like you said, the report in there, the board can acknowledge that we received the election report no comments necessary, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Right, just,
They,
yeah,
that it's been received, acknowledge,
Right.
or they received it, and have a question.
right,
Right.
It's that simple. And the question did come up whether the board has an agenda, but that's up to the board and the secretary how they want to deal with it. Our communication should be with the board liaison.
So that was gonna be my question. Do we? Our job is to codify requirements, right? We don't determine the requirements, we just make sure they're codified
Right.
and, the language is good and all that, right? So we're bringing up a concern about something. Are we saying that we feel that this needs to be codified in some way in order to standardize it in the future? Or are we just saying, hey, board, you need to think
bring it
about
to your
this?
attention, don't
And-
forget, you need to, yeah,
So
you know,
the
that kind of-
current president remembers it and adds it to the agenda, but the following president
right,
maybe doesn't know
or
about it.
doesn't know,
So are we, as a board, do we have a recommendation for if it were codified, where would it go? Is it in the bylaws, is there a roles and responsibilities for the secretary?
I'm not sure how clear it is. That's a question that we probably have to go back and double check for Jim.
In other words, if the board comes back to us and says, well, what do you want us to do about that? Do we have a recommendation?
right,
Well, the recommendation would be, in this case, with the election committee report, that it clearly defines that the committee is to submit a report to the board.
Mhm.
Now, if the board receives the report and has no problem, it's a no-brainer. But if you have a clause in there that basically states that the report should be received, and we don't know if it's being received,
Right.
how do you communicate that to the board other than through the board liaison?
And there's nothing anywhere that says what their like minimum, didn't we talk once about minimum agenda items?
mhm,
Mhm.
yes,
Isn't that in-
because there is
Isn't that in a
spot.
resolution
Yeah,
somewhere?
Yeah.
it is. And because we were asking,
Yeah.
because the comment came up as to like where you put like public comments. Was it, higher up in the agenda?
So then maybe
or
this
At
is,
the end of the meeting, things like that.
maybe this is an edit to that resolution
Mhm.
that we recommend that it be added that upcoming mandatory reports be an agenda item for acknowledgement/discussion.
Mhm.
But again, we should work back with the board liaison.
Oh, yeah,
Because we know that it's not happening,
yes.
and maybe it is, and that's was Jim's point. They could be receiving the report, filing it, and never mentioning it. But if you got if you have one of the follow-up, the resolution that says they'll receive it, and we don't know if it's being received,
Well,
But I would argue
go ahead.
that, let's say that is what they're doing. They receive the report,
File it.
getting emailed out to all the board members, everybody's looking at it and go, that's nice,
mhm,
and then it gets filed.
Right.
mhm,
I would say that that's not proper business, right? Because
they should be accepted and presented amongst them. and
it's to the board,
that-
and
Right,
the board is multiple individuals. It's not to the board president, it's to the board,
right,
right? And so the individuals of the board have to have an opportunity to comment on it.
Mhm.
Even if their comment is, I don't have a comment.
right,
No
Right.
comment.
And we know now that you can vote via email. We've talked
Mhm.
about that,
Right.
how many times, right? But
Right.
you can't have discussions
right.
via email. Discussions have to be,
Because it specifically is noted that they can only vote by email if there's going to be,
unanimous.
that
Unanimous.
it is going to be all
Right.
unanimous, right?
So-
And how do you know that if you
And that's
haven't
the
had a
reason,
chance to
and that's the
discuss?
reason it's there, because you want the discussion,
Right,
Right.
exactly.
unless it's
So
a
even if they
no-brainer.
all got the report and they all emailed Doug or whomever and said, yeah, I got it, I'm good with it, I don't have any questions, that's technically discussion.
Right,
Yeah.
That's discussion that should be recorded,
right.
right?
Mhm. And then it would be noted if it was accepted by the whole board or one had questions or whatever, but it still was accepted.
So I think the bottom line here really is back to what you said. We got to get Steve
Right.
to take this concern to the board and see how they may turn around and give it as a charging document back to us so we can formally recommend some sort of
Yeah.
way to codify it, right? But at least it needs to be brought to their attention.
Yeah, because with the committees, the resolution belongs to the committee. Unless we see something that is really a problem, we should look at them when they're due, and is there something missing and make recommendations, but it's up to the committee chair and that committee to accept or reject whatever input we have.
Right.
And if they want to change it, they're to redline their existing policy, send it to the board for a first reading. We don't want to get involved until after the first reading, because if the board says, no, we're not interested in changing it, then we're spinning our wheels.
Right.
But
Well, and another part of what Jim's original recommendation was, not just this issue about recognizing reports, but he was also suggesting potentially for, was it C01? That there be a standardized
Mhm.
agenda
Agenda
format,
and
and
minutes.
standardized
Form, follow
meeting-
for
meetings
minutes.
or
Yeah,
minutes,
minutes.
minutes and agenda, yeah.
Mhm.
So that we're all relatively collecting and
The same-
archiving
The
data
same,
Right.
right.
relatively
Mhm.
the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And that we're following it, because like you said, public comments, if it's consistently at the beginning of a meeting,
Mhm.
then we want all committees and to offer that then, versus waiting till at the end of all of our discussion and then having somebody give input on something when we've already decided on something,
So under
the reports part
Well, part of this affects C01, which we've
Right.
already tasked
to the lead.
Steve
Right.
with talking to the board about, which
Right.
we were gonna follow up on. But I guess as a standalone, it's not directly, there's not one document we can
Right,
tie
it's gonna
this
cover all
to.
of that.
yeah, I think what we should do is wait till the next meeting when Steve is here and we can talk to Steve to get his input as well.
Well, you gotta follow up with Steve no matter what.
Right,
Right.
so I can
So
let him
that's
know that we
true.
have
So
this
can't you
on.
just add this to your notes?
Mhm,
Right,
mhm.
because anytime we wait for the next meeting, that's
Yeah.
a month.
Something comes up and
You know,
we're
I'm not gonna
moving
live that
towards,
long.
we're moving towards holiday season and, we may
Oh,
not
that's
get
right.
us all back
Things are
in
gonna get
here.
difficult.
Yeah.
And somebody
got
may
it.
say, you know what, let's just table this until the new year. And now we're into,
Right.
as like was said, because I did watch the
Well, that's what
special
happened.
meeting one, but like we don't want to end up in January and February still going, oh, we still have these questions. So
Yeah, you're right.
So these are pretty good synopses that are in here under A and B. If
Yeah.
you just want to paste those into
Redo
your
those.
notes with Steve,
Okay.
Yeah,
I think you'll be fine with that.
okay.
and you can just reference those same
Yeah.
notes and republish them
Yeah.
in the next. Good find. Keith.
I just
Well,
read it.
No, but I read this and I knew it was there and I forgot about it. I'm getting, age is not working for me.
We're fine. We're doing good. All right, so that takes care of talking about the unfinished business. Moving on to new business.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we should work on our annual report first.
Okay,
Okay, so that because it is due by the end of this month, it's due
Yeah.
before our next meeting.
we're not going to meet
Okay,
again
so,
until after
right,
the reports due,
exactly.
so we should finalize it at
Which,
this meeting.
And is this your initial draft of it? Is that
Yeah.
what this is?
yes,
Okay.
well, this is it. This draft is a combination of basically what Jim put together for us,
Nice.
thankfully.
Thank you, Jim.
And then I had to,
Yeah.
I asked him a
Yeah.
couple of questions because I know it might sound silly to everybody else, but like at the top, where it says list your committee members, Augie wasn't here for any of this reporting period. Do I include, but he wasn't actually approved yet. So that's why you're not included on here. But Jim said to take himself off. And the board liaison, because the reporting period, he said, ended September 30th. So I'm basing this on what Jim has told me, that our reporting period ended September 30th and the report is due by October 31st.
But the report summarizes what we've done,
The previous year.
which included Jim.
Right.
Yes,
And Steve. because before Steve became a director, he was part of the committee.
So you have a comment section over here on the right.
And I had that originally.
I think you could.
Should I go
think-
back and add
think
that
you
in
could-
there?
I would recommend you just put the names, put the new folks in there, put
Right.
the old folks in there, and you can just comment, recent addition. to
Because
the
originally
committee
that's what I had
as of
done,
umpty squat date, retired from the committee as of umpty squat date,
right?
and just explain that in the
Right,
comment.
and that's what I had originally done, because it felt weird saying, well, we're presenting a report based on new people that, some of them haven't even been here for any of these discussions, So I'll go back and we'll update that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, it's just a snapshot in time.
Yeah,
for-
exactly.
As far as the
And
committee
I
members are
wanted to
concerned.
show that Jim
Right.
was there.
Sure, yeah,
and-
absolutely.
And all, and Steve, before he became a director, was
Absolutely.
with us for the majority of that time. He was
Has
only a
transitioned
director
to
the
director.
last, yeah.
Yeah, there you
He was
go.
only became our board liaison after he became a director for like, 2 months
Yeah.
on this report.
And this is an archival report,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
at some point in the future, somebody may be digging this out of a folder
Right.
somewhere.
If they
in the
have
community.
questions,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I agree.
all right, so
Yeah,
Jim,
and you can either put it over in the comment, or you can expand it down below
Sure.
and list the people
And do
down there and
something
notes
underneath.
behind them.
gotcha,
Yep.
okay.
That probably
So
be
I'll go
the
back
easier
and
way
I
to do
can
it.
fix that. That's
Okay.
no problem. So then, in general, everything else is based upon what Jim had recommended for this report. I added only a little bit of just more, because what he sent me was more like note style, so I just made it more sentences, to maybe make it a little bit more clearer. When I sent it out to everybody to look at, now your copies may not have the red print on here, but Bob did give us, and I don't know,
Yeah, it's just,
did I
Mine's
don't know if I
You didn't
sent
get it,
Jim,
yeah.
well, it's
or
about
Josh.
Yeah,
but it's fine.
I don't know if I sent Josh the color version of this one. I think I might have. Josh, can you scoot the down to the second page just so I can see what page section 6 is? Does it show up on there in color? Yeah, okay.
good.
So that we can all follow that, because when I had the copies made here, they were only in black and white. So the
Yeah.
red is what Bob had taken the time to put his input in. So ideally, what we probably should do is, do you want to start back at the, because we already did section 1, I'll update that. We'll go back to section 2 and just look at each section and see if you all have any additions or anything that you want to add. Does that make
Is this a standard format?
Yeah, it
I
basically,
assume,
yes.
Okay,
Yeah, the,
because the different sections were headers, yeah,
gotcha.
the section, the headers are the standard.
These are
format.
standard.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there is no standard format available blank, so if you take the prior year, you got the
Adjust it,
format
right.
and just change the
yeah,
verbiage
so,
or
Okay.
update it accordingly.
sorry, Josh, can you go back to the first page again so we can see section 2? I couldn't remember if I sent him the color one. I'm assuming if I sent it from my computer, it would have shown up that
Yeah.
way, so. If he's still there. Yeah, we just want to go back to the top. Yeah, okay, perfect, thank you.
Can you close out that recording that started?
Or is that something that we have to do over here?
I've never seen it there before.
That's on your end.
Hold on.
That's an R end, okay.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you. Got it. I would have done that. Sorry.
Okay, that better?
Thank you.
Josh, you do miracles, but I'm not sure you can do the remote.
We're cloning Josh. We're putting him in both places, in person and virtual. No. Okay, so here is section 2, which this category is a section of major activities during the reporting period of 2021.
The second sentence under 2, views have been delayed by the bylaws effort. I mean, I think if we said here, we all know what that means, but I'm not sure that's a very clear sentence for anybody in the future reading this.
Okay.
We might want to clarify that a little bit?
You might want to add to it something, which goes back to the, what he's referring to, the resolutions that needed to be changed and some of the feedback,
The backlog?
the backlog. Yeah. You could put, let's try to figure out.
And is it just because of the bylaws effort, or was it also because of,
Well,
some of the COVID complications?
Pandemic.
that's why I put, well, if we're talking about the last year, it wasn't mostly COVID because we've been meeting for the last year. So we've been meeting because of Josh and the ability of doing the remote meetings.
Right.
So that part wouldn't be
So
there.
it was,
But if you look at mine, go to page 2 where I put the comments down, because that would refer to both the current governance documents that are past due. And what I didn't put in there is some of it was due to workload, legal requirements,
Mhm.
and that's why I put. But we know for a fact that that backlog, a lot of it was created, and some of it actually goes all the way back prior to COVID.
yeah, so I like what you wrote here. What I thought, when I started reading this, what I thought I was gonna see in here, in addition to what you said, is the fact that we get kind of put on hold for legal reviews. Did you say that?
No, I said
That's the one,
limited,
yeah.
but not,
So, I mean, even the board gets put on hold,
yeah.
Right.
right? Because we'll send something to
Right.
legal to review, and then we all sit around and wait for it to come back.
Mhm.
And that's another point that sometimes we never know if it actually made it to the, for legal review, and
Or
if there
where
was a result, so.
So maybe here under 2, we just say, see section 6 for further comment or something, so that we're
Yeah.
not repeating.
Yeah, I think that's what I
And
would
then
do.
in 6,
And then we can expand
Yeah.
6.
yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, just leave these bulletized.
Yeah,
All
I
right, so which
think if
part
you
of
look at the rest of it, they're all pretty clear. Vacancies, members recruited. uh, And the major drafts where we've been involved in, he's got that covered.
Do we want to say YouTube?
Pardon me?
Do we want to say YouTube? This is where we need Steve, our lawyer here. Or do we want to just say,
On the Ocean Pines website.
or say online?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What the heck do we call the,
I mean, it is YouTube, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's a company.
yeah,
I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, it just
No.
something in the back of my brain is.
So, all right.
let's see.
So committee meetings are now both in person.
It probably doesn't hurt anything else, because that's what we're using.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's a big deal or not.
Huh?
I don't know if it's a big deal or not.
I don't know. It's a good point.
I think we could probably take that part out and just have
Online.
it say greater opportunity to participate in real time or observe the meeting online when the recording is posted.
Or how about observe the recorded meeting online?
Okay.
Yeah,
Because you got in real time, so you can either participate in real time or observe the recorded meeting online.
I like that.
Meeting. Did you say online?
Online, just say online.
Okay. And are we taking out when the
Online,
recording
when-
is posted, or
Well,
just say when it's posted?
I don't see that wording as necessary. I mean,
Right, because,
because it has to be posted.
right, recorded means, right,
Yeah.
just
okay.
observe the, well, when you want to put in there, if you're taking the last half out where it says real time to observe the, put in front of that recorded meeting.
Well, I think that's what I meant. So
Oh,
association members a greater opportunity to participate in real time or observe the recorded meeting online.
okay, I missed that. That's what I, yeah. meaning it's a recorded
Okay.
meeting, and that's
Correct.
the key. is.
Period,
Right, yeah.
right?
I agree.
After
That's
that,
good.
period, okay. Number 5. We prepare
sure you're
drafts
not
of
a lawyer?
amendments.
I just spent a long time in the military where everybody has to be a lawyer.
Yes. I only put 4 years in, so
I don't have that background, no.
I dealt with the post office for 20 years.
Yeah.
I was a liaison. for the
Anything to
corporation.
change on number 5 in that
No,
section?
I
It's
think
okay.
5 is fine.
Okay, so then
No serious.
section 3 is problems encountered and assistance required.
Yeah,
Jim had written that there were no serious problems for this committee.
In all fairness, I mean, the reality of it is, the one struggle that we had was a board liaison.
right.
Right,
I mean, I don't know if you want to put that in here or not, but it makes all the difference in the world when we have a good board liaison.
right.
Because Steve basically, or I'm sorry, Jim took upon himself
To do all of
to
the,
do a lot of work that would have normally been the board's liaison's
right,
responsibility. But I mean, essentially it's solved now,
Yeah, it's history, so is it?
Well,
Yeah,
in one way though, if we did say there were some, consistency issues with, a previous, board liaison,
Remember, this only covers the last 12-month period.
yeah,
It doesn't cover
Which-
prior to that.
which,
so we've had 3 in that period of time, right?
If
No,
we
the
had-
past year,
just one,
who was
right?
that?
Was it just Colette?
Well, wasn't Cammy,
Who?
Camille,
Oh,
wasn't she?
before, she was the secretary.
Yeah, just a minute. Yeah, it was Camille before. And when did
You
that,
know what,
I'm trying to
I'll have to go
remember
back and
when
look
she
at that
resigned.
too. When did she because she stopped after that
Right,
2 elections ago,
but
when,
she was our liaison before Colette.
you're
right.
right,
Yeah, she was the liaison before Colette,
And
and
that
she
was during this
remained
period, wasn't
liaison until the lawsuit started.
Yeah.
which,
Maybe we could just say something generic, like, there were some challenges with previous board liaison participation.
With the changing,
or we do it in
Yeah.
a flip and say in a slightly more positive manner,
Right.
just saying, having an effective board liaison makes the process, the work of this committee,
well, if you're gonna do that, then that would fall under 5.
Yeah, I agree. This is for
All right, so
problems
let's,
encountered and assistance required. I mean, the reality of it is, we don't need anything right now. We have
Right.
a board liaison.
right,
That doesn't belong. I'd leave
So-
that the way it is. I think
Okay.
Jim got that one down.
all right, so we're gonna leave that one this,
Right.
as is then, okay? All right, so number 4. This is the request for items to be included in the next OPA budget. As Jim had suggested, that this is generally not a consideration for this committee. And when there is a cost to something the committee is involved in, we are part of a larger effort and not the sole cost driver.
Right.
The committee does appreciate use of the virtual meeting platform Teams, and I think I added this part, and would encourage it to still be utilized and included in the budget as a beneficial expense in order to continue operating the hybrid meetings. That's just acknowledging that our committee has benefited from the
Right.
hybrid type meetings, and even because truthfully, I think our last year was split. Most of it was on virtual, and then only in the last
Well,
couple of months have we met. in
the
person.
advantage, which is kind of unique to this committee, is the hybrid meetings allow us to get access to files we normally don't carry with us to the
Right.
meeting. For instance, because Josh's knowledge, he's able to pull up
Pull up,
the
yeah.
bylaws. We want to look at them. Well, we don't bring the bylaw in mind.
Can we just put, we need Josh here this time?
So that really becomes very important
Yeah.
to this meeting. To a lot of committees, the bylaws aren't that important because they know exactly what's covered
What
in the
applies to
bylaws
them,
for their
yeah.
committee.
You know, Josh, are you listening to all this?
Maybe
What was that?
So Josh, you and I were doing an email exchange one day about Teams. And we were
Yes.
talking about muting people and how to mute people and how to control, some of these large meetings where people want to pipe in. And I remember doing some research, and what you as the administrator of the meeting can do depends on what package of Teams we're using.
He made him a picture, we can see him.
Like there's there's a corporate version versus, there's the free version all the way up to the corporate version, right? And
Right. And there's also some permissions based on your account. So the board members and staff all have @oceanpines.org email addresses, and if they sign in through that, they get additional permissions.
Gotcha.
So where I was going with this is, do we have, as an association, the version of Teams that gives you all the control that you need in order for any of these meetings, whether it's a committee meeting or a board meeting? Because we have an opportunity here on our report under recommended budget items to say something about it, if that would be helpful.
To my knowledge, there's not an upgraded version that we don't have that would do anything more. There are a few features that we'd like to have that either don't exist or are in development. And we've had IT talk to Microsoft about that and put in requests, but I don't believe there's anything we could budget for more that would give us any more, user ability.
Okay,
Okay.
Good.
cool.
But then even just for us to state that we appreciate and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
keep it in the budget, what you do already have, so that, don't get rid of Teams.
And that's why it's saying continue offering.
Yeah.
So I think we have it in.
So the only other thing that I would bring up with regard to this section, and I actually think Jim brought it up at one point, was we're seeing more and more of the wordology of our documents being referred to legal.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree
Yes,
that over the past year and a half, more and more of this stuff, well, we need to get legal, we need to get legal with this,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
right? So I guess I would say we need to keep that in mind, or the board needs to keep that in mind, that as we move forward, that their budget reflects, and maybe they already have this incorporated in some guesstimate process, but reflects the reality that more and more of our editing is being referred to legal for review,
Mm-hmm.
which is cost. So I don't know if there's a specific line item in I don't know if they itemize our legal expenses,
I don't know.
for
how they do
particular
it.
things.
So like, oh, this request came from a committee versus the directors or.
Yeah, no, we're
How does
gonna
that-
budget so many hours for legal review of, committee, resolution of bylaws changes. We're gonna budget so many hours for ARC committee.
Mhm.
I don't know if they break it down like that or not.
Right.
But, maybe it's worth bringing up. I don't know.
Mhm.
Well, you could add in there, because what you're saying, not the sole drivers, such as legal costs, legal review.
Yeah, because we are gonna say in here, and I think in our comment section, right,
Mhm.
that one of the delays has been legal review.
Right.
Well, if we can only afford to pay one person to dig through all this material, because we're also gonna talk about this legislation.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, maybe there would be a budget line item for a paralegal to do some part-time work, to review some of this stuff. I don't know. I just think that
Mhm.
it just seems like every other meeting now, if we're talking about anything of substance, somebody wants to refer to legal.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah. Now, the question is that more appropriate where you're talking about Ocean Pines budget, or is it more appropriate where you're recommending for board action?
So I think it's a budget item.
No, I do too.
I think it's a budget item.
Okay, so how do you want to add that in there? Where?
Let's
where do
see,
you
what
want
did we
that?
say?
So under section 4, we want to add,
Yeah, I would go after and not the sole driver and then
Right,
just
right.
become, for example, or
do we, instead of just saying like items, are you working, is he working up a,
something.
good.
Take advantage of our military or.
Because we don't have to ask for legal review.
How about this, as an add-on? Request consideration for additional legal review funding for bylaws and resolutions updates.
Right.
All right, say it again slower.
Request consideration for additional legal review funding for bylaws and resolution updates.
Request consideration for additional,
Legal review funding. For bylaws and resolutions updates.
Yeah, because the board always goes to the lawyer where they think it's appropriate. We can recommend to the board they consider that, but that's basically should cover it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're gonna do it ad hoc no matter what, right? But, I mean, I think we're
but
seeing
they
a
need to
pattern.
know that.
Yeah, we are.
We're seeing
Yeah.
a pattern here.
Yeah,
The
there's
pattern
more.
is.
And of all, a lot
There's-
of the committees, this one is the most probably affected.
This one
Fine.
is, right. And sometimes when we're reviewing a change to a resolution, it should have legal review, and we recommend that to the board when we forward it on to them.
Right, right, okay.
So that would
Now,
cover
where,
that part of it.
Is
Yeah,
this,
most committees don't get into the legal part of it
right,
because that it
Right.
passes through here and we're
Right.
because
basically
if they're
making sure.
referring to either a bylaw or resolution, we've already hopefully made sure that it was legally
Yeah.
worded correctly. They can just take it and do whatever their own discussion. They're not necessarily asking for legal review at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just think, I know that our legal bill has got to be not insignificant.
Right, yeah.
So I would have to imagine at some point, if they haven't been doing it, they would start itemizing it, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And if for no other reason, for tracking our needs.
Right.
And I think we're seeing a pattern of needs here for,
So where did you want this?
Oh,
Is
as
it
an
right
add-on.
after the sole cost driver or,
It should
Or
go
is
after
it-
the sole cost driver,
okay,
I would think,
so
right?
like a new
yeah,
section?
I would just tack it on to
Just tack it-
Yeah,
the,
put it on the
tack
bottom.
it on to the end of
On
this
the end?
paragraph. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
You could start it out by saying additionally, request consideration for.
Okay.
Well, now it's redundant.
Well, because I
Now it's
can,
repetitive, additional legal,
Yeah, that's good.
or words to that effect.
That's fine. This is a real legal document.
Right. I just think it's a fair thing to do.
Community,
Yeah.
no, it's a
no,
good
I
point.
think, and this is our once a year time to say stuff like this, so.
Right.
And then I think that leads right into 5.
Right.
And this is an issue we
So-
talked about before. So Augie, just for your,
Mhm.
to bring you up to speed on this issue, basically, Maryland state law, the state has got laws for HOAs. That take precedence over, anything that we come up with here, right? So we have to take those into consideration whenever we're updating our documents. The problem is, we don't always know when they happen,
Right.
and it's kind of hit or miss.
Mhm.
Sometimes Jim would find out about it, and Jim would know, and he'd bring
Bob
it up with
has,
Bob.
yeah.
But it was kind of hit or miss, and what
Can you
we,
just keep doing that
Right.
for us? No.
what we talked about here at one point is it seems like this should be more of a methodical effort.
Well, and this is also, doesn't it feel like the legal team should be
Well-
up on that this association has? And shouldn't they be
They should,
letting the directors know, and then the directors
Sure.
as a team tell the respective liaisons, go back to your committees
We were just notified.
and say,
Mhm.
yes, this is an upcoming change,
Mhm.
you know? So I think, again, that leads back to part of our communication
Yeah.
lines here,
Mhm.
you know? Because sometimes even when we've asked for a legal review, we had the liaison request that, but then it never came back with any, in a timely manner, any follow-up to even say, oh, yes, this is what legal said we should change it to, or, oh, no, they're still working on it. We don't have an update yet. You know what I mean? So I think
Yeah, they're
it
probably,
would be helpful if the directors would be able to communicate that to the legal team and say,
well,
we would expect and hope that you would keep us up on all of these legislative changes.
yeah, I think they should be doing that now because the firm that we hired, which is over in the Western Shore, they specialize in homeowners associations.
Okay.
So we're not the only one that they're supporting. So they should know of all the regulated changes that are taking place. And if we get a heads up, we can begin to look at the bylaws and everything in our
It might be a
documents that are affected by it and probably save some legal costs by recommending this needs to be changed, this needs to be changed. We could still miss something, but
right.
we can avoid some of those costs by helping to identify whether it affects the bylaws, documents, because the state of Maryland overrides everything.
Well, and my concern is, I think we know that our documents on the books today are not in compliance with Maryland law.
Right.
And one of the examples is this election sign issue I brought up earlier.
Right.
We're not in compliance. So part of my concern is that we don't know where we stand today,
Right.
let alone where we're going in the future, right?
Right.
And it would seem to me that somebody, a paralegal or somebody, and it sounds to me like this firm is the one who should be doing it, and that's what they specialize in,
Right.
should go through our stuff and say, hey, by the way, you need to change that, you know, in accordance with this. And it looks like, you know, this wording needs, and then that would go back to the board. And
Right.
then the board would turn that into
Let us
charging
know,
documents
right.
for us,
Mhm.
right? And then that would drive a stake in the ground that from this point forward, whenever they're aware of legislative changes, they notify us, and then we can go dig in our documents but I think we got some catching up to do.
Yeah,
Right. Mhm.
I think so too.
But to make sure we do the process without us having to spin our wheels, it would be helpful to know ahead of time which sections we should start focusing on, you know, first versus just saying, oh, let's just start going through everything again.
No,
All
you
right,
know?
that's what I mean. I think it's a two-pronged
Yeah.
issue, right? It's what's in the books today
Right.
that we need to be concerned about and take a look at. And how are we going to keep up to date in the future going forward
Right.
no, it's true.
so that we don't get behind?
One is catching up and the other is staying current.
Staying caught up. Yeah, staying
Right.
current. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Concurrency.
So is there any of that wording
Yeah, I'm not, this
That-
paragraph, it just doesn't really say that.
is recommended to revisit the item?
I mean, the first sentence is okay.
Yeah. What we could do is recommend. to the board.
I know I added the last sentence that said, it should be clarified if this effort is to be primarily driven by, and we could change the word, you know, take out attorney and say legal,
Well, it's
whatever,
attorney or counsel.
board and staff,
It's corporate
or
counsel.
by another department or committee. Basically, I think we need to know, do they expect us to be the ones to drive any update, you know, keeping everything up to snuff?
No.
Or is this something, because to
Well, we
me,
can't.
it wasn't
We
put
can't.
anywhere,
It-
that it
it-
was clearly documented that it should come from the directors, you know?
We can't start playing lawyer.
No.
Right.
Uh,
So,
My understanding is the legal counsel that Ocean Pines uses, one of their divisions has expertise in HOA. And they should be really the person, the
okay,
group
so take
to
my,
tell us where we're in violation.
so take my
because when
last
they-
sentence out, I think, right?
There's no federal law, right? It's just,
Huh?
there's no federal HOA.
I don't, as far as I know, the only is Maryland HOA law. Which preempts any bylaws, declarations, restrictions, whatever. They override them all.
How about something like this? So starting with that first sentence where it says being informed of legislative changes, what if we added onto the end of that sentence affecting current bylaws and resolutions and a process going forward to stay concurrent with all applicable state law?
Let's see.
What? Say it again.
So in its entirety, it would be the first sentence, which
Mhm.
is, it is recommended to revisit the item from last year about the association being informed of legislative changes. And then I would add affecting current bylaws and resolutions and a process going forward to stay concurrent with all applicable state law.
Do you want to put in there charter, declaration of restrictions? Or just leave it at that?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know enough about the declarations of restrictions.
Yeah, what can be
Because
changed?
they're harder to change, right?
Yeah, they're harder, but if
Mhm.
Maryland passes a law that makes your declaration of restrictions illegal, who overrides what? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not an attorney.
Don't we have to have like a really high percentage of members vote to change the
Yeah.
DRs?
Yeah, it varies.
Yeah.
I bring that up because if Maryland law changes,
Mhm.
so now it makes a provision of our DRs illegal, yet we have to present it to the membership to vote on. And the membership, just because they're lazy voters, don't want to participate in it.
And we don't get the amount that we need.
So in other words, it would seem like if it were in direct conflict with state law, that there would be some other method by which they could be updated to become in compliance with state law that wouldn't require 80% of the
Full,
membership to
Right.
vote on it. Because it's a very high number, and I don't think we've ever gotten more than like
No, that's been
35,
part of our
40% of the
problem, yeah.
membership to
Yeah,
vote.
45, maybe 50,
Yeah.
if you're lucky.
Yeah,
I want to say it's like 80 something. It's a really high
Yeah.
number.
yeah.
Yeah, it's at least that. And I think in the very early ones, it was 100%, but I'm not sure.
And is that, as I recall, that DR number, that's a state requirement, right? That's not us.
What's that?
The percentage of members required in order to change DRs, I think that comes
that
out of
in
the
the
state
state law?
requirement. It's not something we said.
Right, because then if we could, then we could make it a more reasonable number for.
For situations like this,
Mhm.
where it specifically contradicts
Right,
law precedent.
right.
Yeah. But the fact is that something could change in the state that affects any of those.
Yeah, no, that's a good
And
point.
we don't need to get into that as much as to remind them from a legal standpoint that they look at the law to make sure that we're not in violation
Right.
Right.
of any of the
Yeah.
declaration of restrictions of the charter.
Is there a term that we could use instead of saying bylaws, resolutions, and DRs? Is there just an overarching term for all our
Governing
charter governing
documents.
governing documents? I think I like that better.
Yeah.
All right, so you want affecting current governing documents is what you're putting in?
Yeah.
I think that's better.
Yeah, that encompasses everything.
Right.
Right, we could have something in the ARC guidelines.
Yeah,
that
There's
ends
a
up being
pecking order
illegal.
that goes right down.
So
the
just
list.
repeat
And
that one
if
back
you say
to me.
government, it covers all of them.
Affecting.
So it's, so affecting current governing documents
Mhm.
and a process going forward.
OPA's governing documents.
Current OPA governing documents and a
Okay.
process going forward to stay concurrent with all applicable state
Right,
law.
I think that's it.
I'm sorry, I'm always hard of hearing, but the very end of it then, to stay current and
It'll
what?
be recorded too.
To stay concurrent with all applicable state law.
I'm taking notes.
You are, you're over there, you're writing like a crazy person.
Yeah, so you got two backups there.
You're hired.
You're on.
See, that's why I said I can't talk and write at the same time. My brain's just, I can't get it all down there. So, all right. Okay. Well, I'll state this after we finish working on this last section, but I'll put a new draft together with all of these things out. We'll send it out to all of us first. For
Yep.
one final, hey, send me back an email that says, okay.
We'll
this
check
is
your
good.
spelling and punctuation.
Yes, exactly. You put that in the wrong place, the right word, but in the wrong place, and then we can officially submit it
Right.
after that. So,
Right, that's good.
And just so you know, whenever we get into the part where we're debating language in an actual, resolution or something, and it starts getting really wordy, typically what happens is one of us volunteers to redline that. And then after the meeting, we send it out to everybody. This is what I was saying. We all agreed to it in premise,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But my recommendation would be him not trying to write all that down.
right.
Right.
Just to
Right.
state that so-and-so volunteered to redline
Right.
the required wording and you're right, you're wearing me out.
We're gonna have to supply some more notebooks. Okay. Okay, so that finishes section 5 then,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so the last section, and really the one part of it is number 1 that Bob had inputted, and you can see the red sections up top on the screen that Josh has up for us, because the copies I had were only in black and white. You can see what he added. Because basically initially the suggestion from Jim was just to say, continue regular review of resolutions. And then he was a little more specific.
So I think on your third line there,
Okay,
where it says, including but not limited to the significant time required by this committee and the board updating our bylaws, that's probably where we should include and legal review
right,
somewhere in there.
right.
Significant time required by this committee, the board, and required legal reviews. How about that?
Mhm.
Because we got to take out the word both, because we're changing it to 3 things now instead of
Right.
2.
Okay. So we took out
But it's
significant required
the board,
by,
comma, and required legal reviews. Related to updating your bylaws.
we want 2 required there in a row, or we want to switch one of the required. Significant time required. Consumed. Because I think you have required, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. How about expended?
Expended, there you go.
Expended.
Expended is good.
All right, where did you put that?
In place of the first required, the first first one there, significant time expended
Oh, okay.
Expended
Instead of required.
instead of
by,
expended.
delete both. Expended by this committee, comma, the board, comma, and then insert and required legal reviews related to updating our bylaws.
Okay,
Do we get legal reviews for our resolutions?
no, not all of them.
I'm wondering, should we change this to governing documents?
Yeah,
Like we did in
Like we did on
5?
the earlier. Yeah.
well,
I mean, is it
except-
just bylaws we send to them?
yeah, no. What I was saying there is a lot of the delays that occurred this year were because of the work on the bylaws. That
Oh,
was
because of the vote coming up.
the vote coming up to
Oh.
prepare those documents to
gotcha.
be updated. That's what I was
Oh, I
referring
see.
to, because that was last year's effort.
Oh, it's,
That's true. Yeah.
You with me?
I'm with you now.
Okay. But somebody else may not understand that if you had that problem.
Okay, so yeah, so now I'm thinking about this differently.
Is number one then done, or are we looking at
No,
number
I
2 or 3?
rescind
Or are
my-
you still looking back at
I
one?
rescind my recommended editing.
That what?
The editing I recommended
Uh-huh.
for that, I rescind.
Oh,
Because I wasn't thinking of it like Bob said.
gotcha.
I mean, Bob's right. We basically had to put a bunch of things on hold
Because we were working on.
because we had to nail them down for the vote process, and then we could pick it up again
Right.
because we didn't know if they were gonna pass, right?
Right.
So if they passed, if they didn't pass, it was gonna affect how we
How to
move
fix it.
forward.
Right. Mhm.
So, and there was a lot of things that had to be put on hold until after that, and that's what he's trying to say there.
I'm gonna say while updating our bylaws, or.
So first of all, instead of time, I would say delay. Significant delay.
Do you still want your expended
I
in
got it.
there? Or are we
No,
taking that out
I
then?
got it.
I'm gonna have to rewatch this too. No. Was it long?
It was locked.
We're still going back over, we're still on one.
Okay.
Was that? I can't remember now. Was that a standalone referendum or was that part of a board vote?
What was that?
when we did the bylaws?
It was.
That was actually a standalone
Yeah,
Standalone?
referendum. It went out by itself. And that's before the threshold is in there for the percentage of votes.
right.
Theoretically, it wouldn't have passed.
Yeah, that's scary.
It is. Well,
We gotta do something about that.
what is really scary is the amount of people that participate in the general elections, which is, there got to be some way to encourage that group to
Yeah.
get more participation.
Maybe we just keep it simple. Maybe we just say,
Yeah, I was, my point of that one was the fact that 20 out of the 22 are past due. And not to pass blame on it because it was stopped at the board level, but they had an overload. So I'm trying, and the intent was to explain why the overload was there.
Mhm.
And if we work with the board liaison, because some of those are more important than others. And if we can get the important ones passed and the ones that aren't held up for legal review, it would help.
Right.
how about if we just say something simple like, past due for a variety of reasons, including but not limited to delays related to the bylaws referendum preparation.
That's fine.
I think
That
sounds
works for
right.
me.
Cause that wraps it all up in one big burrito,
Yeah.
right?
Because I'm saying, I'm basically saying they all happened this year. Some were
Right.
carryover prior year. That was COVID. That's why I said not limited to. And some were legal review, not limited to.
And the bottom line is, we weren't going to be able to proceed with a number of those until we knew what the results of the vote were.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And then keep the last sentence there. So that wording would replace your original wording, not limited to. We would be deleting the significant time required by this committee and the board updating our bylaws. We'd be deleting that part
Mhm.
and replacing it with delays related to the bylaws referendum preparation.
Mhm. That's good.
Then keep your last sentence.
Yeah, because that's the last sentence is the real key because it's to try to help this process. And one of the things you might want to consider at some point is for where appropriate, again, it's through the board liaison, is this document doesn't get distributed beyond our committee.
Right.
But the board liaison can present it to the board. That's his call.
Mhm.
But see, now this makes me think we should go back and address this in 3.
Oh.
Because in 3, we're asking for assistance required, right?
Mhm.
So should we add a sentence or something in 3 that says, due to a backlog, delays and backlog created by this,
Yeah,
request boards focused attention on referendums for their review, something like that.
resolutions, right.
Yeah, that, because we got
Yeah.
because we got behind and we're backlogged, we really need you to take some
Right.
time
Yeah.
and focus on these documents that are over
Yeah.
here.
We're at, yeah,
Maybe
right.
we should put that in 3.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where it would belong.
All right, do you want to go back to 3 then while that part's still fresh in our minds right
Mhm.
here? And then.
Yeah, because basically we're done if you modify 3.
Say
And I think you had some verbiage already there, Keith, that would work.
that I have now completely forgotten.
Due to the backlog created by the referendum, we request the board's focused attention on overdue resolutions.
Ooh, very good.
See, there you go.
Like a computer.
I know,
I've
man.
never seen anybody take shorthand and longhand.
That's great.
I'm so far behind on that one.
I think that's a legitimate request.
Yes,
We
no, I
really
think
need to
so.
focus on this because we're behind.
Right.
Yeah, we
Right.
do need to get them cleaned up. Because
Okay.
why have them if they're not current?
And if they say, well, what are you talking about? Well, then go down here to section 6 where we expand on it a little bit more. That's why we're asking for that.
And if you want to see what you're really talking about, just look at the document.
Yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. Are
'Cause
we,
they have the dates on, and I've been very careful to protect those dates.
I may use some version of red to highlight those in the future.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can, see, what I wanted to do was try to incorporate it up here rather than mess this thing up.
Yeah.
And you told me there was a way to take one of the top lines and still make it part of this header information. I don't know how to do that.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But if you did that there, then you could say red denotes past due, yellow denotes.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. I can
Yeah.
do that.
yeah, if you can figure out how to
The-
add an extra line on
the,
the header, I don't know how you do it.
What do they call that on a map? They call that the legend.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, you know how to, you
I'll do that.
mentioned it and I couldn't quite figure it out, so I,
All right. So.
All right, so are
we're
number
good
2
with-
and 3 fine
Mhm.
under section 6 then as
I
is?
think we got it all.
Okay. All right.
I don't see anything else there, Keith, that we missed.
I may have to get that last wording from Augie.
No, I think we're.
Email.
That we're gonna do for number 3,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
I think that. works.
Email it to you or read it.
Or,
But you're gonna edit this and send it out, right?
yes, but I just
She's
need
gonna
that
send it
last
to you.
section there.
So
Right,
if you
to us.
want, when she sends it out, you can just plug it in there,
Okay.
right? And when you just reply to all, when you send it
Oh,
back.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll do it that way. I'll put a little note that says,
From Augie.
Augie's, yeah, Augie's notes. So, all right, okay.
We just want to be on time.
Okay.
No, I'm not
to
I'm with
that,
that, but yeah,
I-
the other two running close.
I would say that we, I
What
would say, what time is it? Let me
what
see.
time is it? It should be
2:38.
almost
Okay, so
2
let's,
o'clock.
do you want to table the M05? Because I want us to make sure that we have time to go over, my idea was, Keith's, the new document, the new
Yeah.
governance thing. I want to make sure we have time over here to start, hopefully picking for our next meeting, what our priorities should be. What are our next tasks that we need to put on the agenda? I feel like that's the part I struggle with, is not knowing, okay, how did Jim always figure out which ones we needed to talk about? Based on that?
Well, I think part of the problem here is that so many of these items we're waiting on Steve on.
Gotcha, okay,
I mean, all these yellows, we're
Yeah.
waiting on Steve
Yeah,
okay,
because they're overdue and they're for the board. And
right,
yeah, we
Steve-
can't go directly to the board.
okay,
And as far as the other issues that Jim would bring up, they would just be his observations when he attends the board meetings. See, he would attend a lot of other meetings too. He wouldn't just go to the board meeting. He would go to other meetings that were available,
Yeah,
and
that I don't have time for.
things would, I don't think you necessarily have to, but
Yeah,
like there's the executive steering committee, you do
that
have to go
one,
to
that one you have to go to.
But a lot of them came from, the thing is, there's more board meetings than I think a lot of people realize because they
Right.
have these little onesie twosies, these quick ones where it's a single issue.
Special meeting.
Special
Right.
meetings, right,
Right.
thank you. And he would try to attend or watch, you don't have to actually
Right.
attend it, you can watch it online, right?
right.
And he would hear something and he would think about it because he knew all this stuff.
Mhm.
And then he would go and he'd look it
Yeah,
up. and-
trigger something for
We're
him
like,
to
yeah.
say, oh, okay, yeah.
So, and he would just make notes about it. And sometimes he wasn't certain it was an issue, but he would bring it to the meeting
Right,
and we would talk about it.
Mhm.
And
Right.
sometimes we thought, yeah, that is an issue. And sometimes we thought it wasn't.
right. Okay.
That is, aside from any charging documents.
Yeah.
that we specifically get.
Yeah, because you get the regular, and the committees, I think, are all current right now. And that one that we fixed, because while we said originally we weren't going to review them, we'll still look at them when they're due. Because if we notice something that's wrong or something that should change as a result of the bylaws and got missed in their
Right,
resolution, we want to be able to get it fixed. So we do that as a courtesy when you send it out. Just tell them what to look at. For the board, we definitely reviewing them. If they're a board we're looking for anything that needs to be changed or we think should be changed, and we'd either redline it or send it as a charging document to them so they can look at it. Because they have the ultimate control
Right.
for their own. But we don't want to change any. And Doug, at one of the meetings where we send one back and we basically said it should be approved, his question was why does it come back? And the reason it comes back, we have no control over that.
Right.
Right.
Since you're going to send something to Steve,
Mhm.
notes and such and
Mhm.
requests for updates, should we include on there for Steve, because Steve wasn't here for this initial conversation about these election issues? Should we bring Steve up to date on this so that Steve can bring it to the board?
Mhm.
Because just in my personal opinion, the public announcements of the restrictions of voting signs
Mhm.
needs to stop
Mhm.
before somebody smart enough to know brings it up as an issue.
That, right. Okay. So,
Yeah, because that's wrong.
Because it's wrong. And we don't need to get,
And it may be so.
we don't need to
simple.
get into it with anybody over this issue.
No, the only thing that you can do as committee chair is to go to that committee, which is the our
ARC one, right?
committee, and just ask them if they're aware that that statement is in violation of the bylaws.
And by the way, I can type this up for you.
Okay.
And then when you send that out,
Yeah.
I can type it up and then stick it in there with,
Mhm.
just a general comment,
Mhm.
for liaison. But it seems to me that I think the way it would go down is Steve would bring it to the board and say, this was just brought up as a concern. The board would go, yeah, I think that sounds right. And then the board liaison to the
Well,
ARC
that committee.
would take it back to the committee and say, hey, ixnay on these
Right.
comments right now online about
Mhm.
election signs. We've got some work we need to do. We got to update our documents, but let's not poke a hornet's nest here and,
Right.
end up back in court with another big legal bill.
Right.
So, so I can, when you send out the document, I'll add a little paragraph in there
Okay.
to try to bring Steve up to date on that.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, because I don't spend any time on the internet on any of those social websites, so I have no idea what's going on.
Mhm.
yeah, it's
I
just,
don't want to get
there's
involved.
general helpful things that are posted,
Mhm.
reminders about trash cans and this and that.
Right.
And because an election's coming up, they're starting to focus on election related
Right.
requirements. And
Right.
one of them is about signs. And
That one is really very clear.
they posted it, that thing has popped up on social media multiple times now.
Yeah.
And you can put as many signs in your yard as you want
Well,
for
the
legal
bottom
elections.
line is state law says there's no
Oh, right,
restriction. You
right.
can't restrict people on
Right.
voting issues of any kind.
Right.
Other than a reasonable requirement that after the vote, after election day, you can put a requirement that they have to be taken down after.
Within 10 days
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yeah, other than that, but
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's just all.
Yeah, you can't.
All right. So we will do
And
that.
the common sense, and I'm sure it's in the law, with profanity and stuff like that in signs. No, that's not
Right.
acceptable.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think anything else we have in there specifically related to signs is a problem. It's just that one specific thing. And as I remember, because man, we talked about this, it's actually in two different areas,
Mhm.
right? Is there something there's something in the bylaws about it, and then there's something in the ARC guidelines about it.
Mhm.
It's in two places.
Mhm. Probably, yeah.
So, I can't
And
remember.
there's a different set of requirements for the board of directors when that election compared to federal and state elections.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's going to require it does require a bylaws change. It is in the bylaws because it was something that we were trying to get in for that last vote. and we
Right.
Didn't make it in there. So
Mhm.
unfortunately, that's another
Mhm.
bylaws vote.
Yay. So, all right.
So yeah,
so
I
we'll
will.
put together
I
some
will take
stuff
that
to
responsibility
send
after
to
that.
Steve. Yeah. All right. Do we want to table the M05 till next I don't even know if I printed that one out today.
I saw an email.
Was what?
Is it?
Did I print it out?
Well, Josh can pull it up too. Animal control. Is
Oh,
it
the
in
animal
your packet?
control. Has
The
that
what?
been forwarded? That was. Let's see.
Josh, can you, oh, he's got it right there.
Yeah,
You the man.
He's good.
he's better than we are.
So what is the?
Yeah. So the question is, where is Steve on that one?
Okay, so that's another follow-up.
Yeah.
Review of draft amendment. Is that what it is?
Yeah, basically it's saying, or not Steve, just a minute, hold on. It would have to be, it was basically approved, but it hasn't been posted. And when I updated this, which would have been on the 13th, when did I update it? To their schedule.
Are you looking at 5 or 6?
I'm looking at 6. Oh,
5.
Five.
5.
oh, 5.
So this is what I had on 5.
Yeah.
Resubmit draft for request changes. Board meeting for the first reading.
Okay.
So that's just a follow-up.
Yeah, that's follow-up. Okay.
Seems similar to a lot of the others.
It's all part of the backlog we were
Yeah,
talking about.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that would just be
so
included,
that one I just need,
it would just be included in your notes to Steve as
as a,
a follow-up.
Yeah.
all right. The other thing I had under new business, and we do not have to finalize that today, we could do that at the next meeting, but I wanted to be able to find out from our group here, are we all still good for, we have, I know this room was reserved for the next 2 months, I believe. Let me see if there's, yeah. And then, like Jim did it through 2022. We
Right.
don't have anything picked for starting in January of 2023. So I guess, I don't know how popular this room is on a Friday afternoon from 1 to 3. If, I don't know how soon I should get that request in for us for our new year, our 2023 dates. So like I said, we don't have to finalize anything like that. But in general, with at least the 4 of us, hopefully Pam will be able to join us at some point. We can find out if this time frame still works for everybody. I mean, it's fine for me. We've all, 3 of us have already kind of booked in the third Friday from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. Does that would that typically be okay for you and your work schedule?
I mean, yes, this is probably about the best
Yeah.
Okay.
day and time
Okay,
And the
all right.
reason
that I can work with, and the best chance of getting here in person is definitely on Friday.
And the other
Okay.
reason that Friday works good is because a lot of people come down for the weekend that don't live here. It's
Right,
convenient,
right.
but yeah,
Okay.
to me,
So we can stick with the Fridays. Do you like the 3rd? You want to keep on that
Yeah.
same
I think that's
rotation?
what Jim checks with out here to make sure the
And
booking
just-
of the room, but
okay.
if it's available, I
It
just. go
used to be
ahead.
the second Friday of every month, didn't it?
It was, and
And it
I,
wasn't available, something conflicted with it.
yeah,
And then we switched it. In general, I'm fine with it on Fridays. It's probably the best day for me.
so
as well.
Fridays 1 to 3 are fine. Do you prefer 2nd or 3rd
I
or
don't-
whenever
I
it's
don't
available?
I don't think it makes a difference to
And
me.
it doesn't make a difference to me
So I can
if you
look.
book it
and-
out far enough.
Yeah.
All right,
The only one that I might miss will be December,
okay.
because I'm gonna be on a cruise ship. And that's communication there isn't gonna work, even remote.
You can rewatch the lovely meeting.
I can when I get back. That's the only one. I'll be back in
Okay.
January. If you
Okay.
do it the second week, I may not be back. I'm down in Florida then,
Right, okay.
the week
all
of the
right.
8th, but
Well-
that's it.
So I'll
But
leave
I
it
can
with,
call them.
I'll follow up, find out how the process works here, myself, and find out if
Right,
a certain Friday's already been booked, and then see what we can
Yeah,
get in the calendar.
I don't remember how we wound up moving to the third, but
Yeah.
it could have been
I think it
the
was
second.
because we switched, when we decided to offer in person,
Right.
I think the room had been already booked for something else at that point. So we took the next available.
Mhm.
But you know, I'll work on that.
Is Josh still available to help next year?
Mr. Josh, are you still there?
Yes.
Are you planning on sticking around for all of 2023 also?
I have no plans to do otherwise, so
Okay, all right, just checking, because whatever, are Fridays 1 to 3 in the afternoon okay for you to help out us
yeah, that
out?
works
with
for me.
committees? Okay, I
Yep.
just need to find out when, moving forward in January, I don't think any of our meeting dates were booked yet in this room. So I need to find out and see ideally if it's either the second or third Friday of those.
Yeah, just go through
months.
Linda Martin. She'll set you up with whatever you need.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, so we got that done. Okay, so we're almost done. So looking at Keith, is there anything you and Bob want to update us on then on the governance document? How you want to move forward with it? How do we, you know,
I would say that for purposes of today, really what we're just looking at is catching up with Steve and finding out,
the
What's
update
happening
on,
in all
you know,
of those.
get an update. I am gonna go through this,
Yeah.
just to make sure that nothing's missed in here.
Right.
right?
And update that as necessary, but I don't see as us, we don't really have anything to put on here,
Right.
other than follow up.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that's due coming up that's unmarked, just go
Like
through the
immediate.
yellows and the
Okay.
blanks and see if there's any that are 23, 24.
I think we kind of updated all of that
Yeah,
at the September
that's
meeting. with
Well,
Jim,
December
right?
22 is the Racket Sports Advisory Committee.
So we should look at theirs and,
So in November,
yeah, look at that next month and then send it out to them with any comments we may have. But that would be for, and what's this, November 20?
That's 24.
24.
24, March 19.
Yeah.
Overdue. And then search committee, March of 23, but that's a few months away.
Yeah, that's,
right?
So really, the only thing coming up is the,
The racket one that you
Mhm.
said.
which
Yeah.
is, C14 on page 3.
we could look at that next month and
So we'll do that for November.
see if
Review
there's
that
any.
next meeting.
And then that one you just send it here as a committee.
Okay.
And
With a
tell them it's due
FYI.
for review. Right.
Don't forget.
Yeah.
Do I do that before our November meeting or after we have our November meeting?
I would wait till we have our November meeting, because that way we can look at it and see if we see anything. And then we can tell them, we don't see a need for change, you should review it.
we can just say recommended that
Right.
we don't see any obvious
Right.
changes, but you still need to look
Right.
at it.
And just let us know.
Yeah, we have to be careful how we word that
Yeah.
because we don't want to let them off
We
the
don't-
hook of reviewing it.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Well, why don't you do it the other way?
Well, we,
As we did in the past, just tell them it's due for review in November. Give them the heads up and let us know if you have any questions.
yes, I think that's better.
Or,
Because if we say we looked at it and we didn't see
Yeah.
anything wrong with it, then we're going, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, those guys should know.
Right, right.
yeah,
Okay.
that's true. We could get into that.
Uh-huh.
With the board, it's different,
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
because those are important ones. And we do want to.
So it would just be an executive, it's an executive, steering committee,
Yeah, it's
courtesy between you and
and that chairperson.
It's due for review. Take a look at it, let us know.
Okay.
yeah,
If you need
and
to
it's
make any
due on
changes.
December
And
22nd.
am I doing that before our November
If
meeting?
you did
or-
that before.
Okay,
Yep.
Yeah, give them as much lead time as you can. That way they're ahead of the
Right,
curve.
right, because I don't know, I haven't looked on the website to see when their next meetings are, so
Yeah.
we
Give 'em
don't,
as much
I don't want to
notice as
send them an
possible.
email and they go, oh, we just had our meeting and we don't have, we're skipping December because of the holiday, you know what I mean?
Right.
So,
They could.
okay. Okay, all right. All right, so we are scheduled for our next meeting is November 18th at
Right.
1 o'clock, both
Mhm.
here in this room and on Teams. After that, the December
Is that a
meeting is
computer or
on the
notebook?
16th, so I put those two in.
Is that a computer or notebook?
Since we
both,
have
both.
those committed,
Okay.
You said November 18th?
that's what I have.
I didn't bring my calendar along, but
Hang on a second.
Yes, November 18th is a Friday, the third Friday. It's the day before the November Board of Directors meeting. And then December is the
Okay.
16th. That work for you?
December
16th.
16th. I gotta change that one too.
And then I don't think we have any more scheduled
That's
officially,
good.
because then I gotta
Right.
reserve the room. See, I'm optimistic. I bought myself a new planner. It's 5 years worth.
Oh, man.
I do, I have to have a paper plan and I like the month at a glance looks. So it's 5 years worth of a month, every month.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, does that work?
That's good because that document's due the following Thursday after the meeting's over.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we got that done. Okay, so is there anything else that we should cover now? Because I think we're almost, it's almost 3 o'clock right now. Is there anything that any of you want to discuss or bring up that we should finish today, or that if you have ideas of, something comes up prior to our November meeting that you want added to the agenda, I'll do like I did before. I'll send out the agenda. Ideally, I try and do it at least a week ahead. Depends on my schedule too. But so that give everybody time, and then you can send it back and say, hey, could we add this? And then we'll do the official approval of the agenda at the meeting, and go from there. The only comment I want to add is that I like to reiterate that we are a team effort here. No one person will make any decisions for our committee. Even though as chairperson, I will not make any individual decisions for this committee without the approval of our group. And we are a neutral party. This is for posterity on video, to say that we are a neutral party. We're not here to pick sides of whether we like a bylaws or not. We're here to make sure that it's just in compliance and that we're, following everything. And we're not a negative group, and we will not, we are a drama-free zone here. And that includes on social media as well, for any who do use social media. That is my my personal encouragement that, we represent this committee as a team. And so we're here to support the association where we happen to all reside, or have a home in. And that is, our goal here is to stay positive and focus on what we need to do as a committee and work together. We all bring very unique, different perspectives to the table. And we're all going to be and have always been very respectful of everybody. So I like the back and forth, that we all have input into how things are said here at this committee. So that's my little conversations of support type of encouragement here that we do, even if the rest of the world outside of our little committee gets a little stressful or whatever you want to call it.
Emotional.
You're going to be calm here in this room. So,
Right.
okay. So there, Bob,
I have one question. I just happen to think, we're talking about scheduling meetings.
Mhm.
Now that we know the board meets always on a Saturday
Mhm.
and we're on a Friday, if we could be 1 week before them, then we can get things on the agenda. But if you meet the Friday
Right, we
before,
won't be
your
able to get it
chances
on the
are 0
agenda.
to none.
Right, that is true.
So you might want to look at the
See
scheduling
if they've got
to see
theirs
if we can
all
get
up.
this room so our Friday is 1 week before theirs.
Gotcha, good point.
It's a thought.
Call.
Okay. All right. Meet. Hour.
I don't think any Friday matters.
Good
Whether it's the
thought.
first, second, or third, just pick it and be
No,
consistent.
that-
and then
that's
we'll
great.
schedule around it.
That's a great input.
Okay, good thought there about.
Yeah.
And then, should we discuss, before we adjourn, any future positions here? Or, table that?
Well, I say the committee or the board approved me based on my recommendation. So theoretically, they approved me for a year. But I'm willing to step down at any time that the committee feels that they can find somebody to fill that slot. That really is ideal to meet it. Now, if you want it to be an attorney or you want it to be somebody, I'm willing to be flexible. But so I'm serving at the pleasure of this committee.
Well, filling your shoes is different than filling your slot.
Right, yes, exactly.
And my thought is, I like the ability of having a vote. If I'm only attending, I don't have a vote. That's why I filled out the
Correct, right.
application and sent it
Yes.
in.
Yeah,
So that's where I stand. So it's a committee call as far as I'm concerned.
okay. I would like to, because I've received 2 additional applications in the one yesterday and one just a few days at the end of last week. However, I would like to make sure that our other new committee member is able to attend future meetings and everything, and really wants this position, to be part of this committee before moving forward and trying to fill your spot necessarily. If you said you might not necessarily be here December, I would love to be able to keep you here for at least November to get us through another meeting
Right.
as we transition to a new style board again, with newer members and all of that. Your history and expertise between you and Jim is still very much needed. So I would like to hold those applications for the time being, until after, I want to reach back out to Pam and see, because we are, as a committee, limited to 5 members. Okay, so it's not like I can say, well, let's just add a 6th one in there. We are capped out at 5. Are we all okay with tabling that discussion until the November one? As far as finalizing, whether or not we need to fill any positions on our committee?
Yeah, that's your call.
I am.
Okay, so we're all good to, because technically with Bob here, we are full at 5.
Right.
And we can't take any more.
Yeah.
So I would like to at least give you the option, to be with us at least through the end of this year, the November, December timeframe, whatever, before we decide or can confirm if we have any further openings. That sound good?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have anything further? Otherwise, anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned at 3:05 PM. Thank you very